This is Signal and Noise, bringing clarity to data, tech, and AI.
This is Possible event in Miami, day number 2, and I'm here with Ana from Black & Decker. Ana, so nice to
Guys, thank you so much for having me. It's very exciting to be here.
probably Possible last year, wasn't it?
Yes, that's when we met in real life after having met at the ANA committee, MarTech committee.
There's no substitute for in real life, I don't think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And being in Miami is not too shabby either. So
No, not at all. This view is amazing.
it is. So I was excited to get you on the pod because you're just a wealth of knowledge. Like, you've been working in MarTech for a long time. You're super deep in data. I know you've been doing a lot of really interesting things with AI. So maybe we can start out by just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and your background. I think that'd be really cool.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. So I'm Ana Mourão, and I actually started my career as a digital marketing manager. Actually evolved into analytics, measurement. I always really liked that we could measure things in digital marketing. And then I ended up going into MarTech, right? And some years ago, I was actually hired to implement a MarTech stack to collect and activate end user data. And that's how I got really deep into MarTech. And that's how I end up actually creating my own framework to help other marketers do the most out of MarTech and AI as well.
MarTech can be incredibly confusing, right? I mean, we've all,
Yes.
like, I know that you follow Scott Brinker and, Chief MarTech and all the stuff they've been doing. It's gone from like 5,000, 10,000 to there's so many MarTech things.
Yes.
And then, this is an advertising event. I think when you fold in all that's going on in AdTech, it's incredibly complex and bewildering. And I mean, I don't blame marketers. The fact that the fact they are confused, it's totally understandable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very confusing. I think it's hard to know where to start, right? So I think a lot of marketers receive that directive of making the most out of technology, making the most out of AI, but without a lot of guidance. So a lot of marketers have to find their way around these technologies, around these platforms, both in MarTech and AdTech, to make sure that they're making the most out of those technologies on behalf of their companies and also on behalf of their own careers, right? Because you are exposed to new technology, you learn new things, and you can evolve as well as a marketer. But it takes effort. Right? It's not easy. And what I would recommend is that marketers really lean into the conversations inside their companies. Go talk to your IT, go understand how zero and first party data gets into your MarTech, where it goes in there, how it can be activated. Right? I think having that foundational knowledge can really help when marketers are discussing with other teams, with vendors, helping select new platforms. If you have that view of how the data is and what you need to do with it and the challenges around collecting, unifying, activating, then you have a better idea of what is needed. That at least is my experience.
You mentioned activation. I think this ties to an important point. And I've always been a little puzzled by this. You have the world of MarTech, which is, it's a big, complex world. It's very well established. There's a lot of thought leadership. And then you've got the separate world of AdTech, right? I don't think there's too much cross-pollination or even overlap, to be honest, where I find a lot of people in AdTech, they almost scoff and say, oh, we don't need to know MarTech, right? And people in MarTech are saying, well, AdTech, that's just DSPs. And not realizing, okay, so there's DSPs, there's ad exchanges, there's SSPs, there's clean rooms, which are kind of between MarTech and AdTech. There's different measurement devices. It's incredibly complex. There are thousands of AdTech tools. We have our own AdTech framework that there's some overlap with MarTech, but not as much as you think. But I think those two worlds are starting to get closer together. So I guess the question I have is, like, what do you see in terms of the two worlds? I don't know if they're converging, but at least becoming more linked. Is that something you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I think they're becoming more linked. There's more overlap, but in a very positive way, right? Because companies could and should leverage their own zero and first party data to make the most of their media buy, for instance, or understand the overlap of their own audience and the audience in other publications, media platforms. So I think that the separation actually it's in a way artificial, right? Because there's always been overlap. Advertising is part of marketing. So this separation was more towards, I think that the technology ended up siloing a little more, but it shouldn't, right? And I think it's very positive to be in an event like this, possible where you see both advertising and MarTech and very in-depth discussions of AI in both advertising and marketing in general and where they overlap. So I think that's a very good first step.
I think that's a good point. Like, possible, is it an event where you can see both worlds? And I think
Absolutely.
that there aren't too many of those. Can is, I think, the same, but this is probably the only other one where I've seen like all of the MarTech people I know are all here, and all the
Mhm.
advertising, and and possible even like there's more agency people here and more brands. I mean, I've seen a lot of brand marketers and brand marketing technologists. It's a cool evolution here.
Oh, absolutely. And the event has been evolving, right? So this year you see some tracks and some stages that you didn't see last year. So I think the event is also being very smart in evolving with its audience. So I see that conversions growing into the future for this event and maybe others as well.
I think another reason why MarTech and AdTech have kind of stayed different is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean, some brands have in-house even media buying, but that's pretty rare, right? I think, especially for big global brands, they're
Yes.
going to continue to work with agencies for a lot of reasons. But I think that that's part of the reason is that AdTech is executed. In many of the contracts even sit with agencies, so I think that's kind of led to this division. That, I mean, I agree with you. I'm starting
Also,
to see.
yeah.
Starting to see, and maybe first party data is that kind of bridge between the two. I mean,
Oh,
thoughts on
absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. Yes. That's at least my experience is through the zero and first party data, right? So let's make the most out of our paid media budget by making sure that we start by telling the platform or the media company, okay, we want to find people like this, but not exactly these because they already are with us. So this helps us then go and expand that audience, but making sure that we also improve our cost per acquisition, for instance. So when we first started using our zero and first party data, that's the first benefit we saw.
Targeting, so you're able to like better target people who not you're
Exactly.
saying you suppressed your existing customers, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so these are like targeting people who look like your existing customers. I bet with all that incredible first party data you have, with lifetime value, you have purchase history, so I bet you can really get granular and like hyper targeted in terms of building those audiences.
Oh, absolutely. And then you can find like the most engaged or the most valuable customers you have, the ones that convert the most, and say, okay, I want to start with those, right? So you don't have to give everybody together in order to do good segmentation. You can also segment your first party data first and then go after those specific audiences. And that's really powerful because it really creates the foundation upon which we can then add more on top, right? So we start with the first party data and then we say, now I also want people who are interested in this and that, but there's an overlap with the first party data. So it's really helpful. And I think it's also very helpful for retail media as well.
That you led me to my next question. So which, like, looking at activation, like which channels, like for this, like using lookalikes for suppression and using first party data for suppression and lookalikes, like what channels for activation have you had the most success? And it sounds like retail media is one of them, but are you doing any open web? Like, if you could elaborate on that, that would be amazing.
So through my experience overall, I've seen more success with retail media and in social media platforms, right? But that could also be replicated in open web, in other DSPs throughout the whole ecosystem, I believe.
And like, how does that work? I mean, I'm assuming you work with an agency that does the media buys, or do you do that in house?
For some of those experiences, we did the buying house, right? But could also work with an agency because when we leverage the first party data, the way we do it, we send it very much encrypted, right? Very safely to the platform itself. And then the agency can see the counts, but cannot see the PII,
Okay,
right? So
so
it's super safe.
got it. So you're either uploading to some secure method, whether it's a clean room or something else. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. And then is it coming straight from do you have I don't know if you have a CDP or CRM. How is that data typically, like, where's the source data coming from typically?
So I have experience with coming from the CDP and coming from the customer engagement platform. So whichever
Like
one,
Braze or something like
yeah,
that.
exactly. So whichever one would work, right? So it's not that you have to have a CDP or have to have a data warehouse. No, you can start with what you have on your CRM, on your SAP, and go from there. And you can start with a small proof of concept, see how it goes, and then scale from there. That's also my approach.
I think it's a good point about CDPs. I mean, like a CDP, I look at it more of like, okay, like a almost a constellation of capabilities involving
Absolutely.
first-party data, segmentation, some have analytics, activation that could be in a CDP or it could be in a cloud data warehouse plus something else. So I don't think
Absolutely.
I think like the CDP world, it seems to be more of a consensus that it's not a one size fits all model anymore.
Not at all. Not at all. And I agree with your assessment. One of your articles where you said that really the CDP category is being deconstructed, and it is. I agree with you. And I think there's a lot of overlap with other platforms as well. That's why I mentioned that it's important for marketers and other stakeholders to understand what they need to do. And then they go find the technology, right? Because it's not one size fits all. It may be that you don't need this one technology. What you need actually, it's a mix. Or you need a best of breed approach and you are going to supplement with something that you create inside the company, right? So it needs to be very well thought of so that you get the most out of it.
How do you like when you're looking at different vendors, let's say you're looking at a category, like what are do you have any tips or best practices for other, let's say, marketers who are not as deep as you in MarTech or maybe coming from the ad tech side, like any tips or tricks, like how you approach these categories? Like, let's say you wanted to go solve first party data problems and you're maybe looking at a CDP, any like best practices you can share?
Sure. So in our case, what happened was that we understood that we were collecting the data, but when we went back to our business stakeholders, to our senior leadership, they asked, okay, so how about the data over time? And we didn't have the CDP yet back then. And we're like, okay, no data over time. We cannot do that. So we realized that actually it was not about having the data only. It was about collecting data over time so that we could have a clear picture over time. Right? So that's what led us to say, okay, so we need a platform that gives that capability to us. And most of the questions we were getting were marketing related. So if we were not going to look for a database that could not help marketers.
Sure.
Right? So that's how we got to then the CDP. That was years ago. But those are the questions that I think need to be discussed before you get to, oh, it's this acronym or that acronym.
Or just really focusing, okay, what problems do we want to solve? And
Exactly.
then like what
Exactly.
capabilities or use cases can we identify
Exactly.
that would potentially address those and kind of finding best fit, right?
Yes.
Based on that and other factors
Yes,
too.
that's exactly it.
Okay. The role of procurement in like, I think for marketing, like all of marketing, especially for advertising, has been, it comes up a lot these days, like people complain about procurement, they're just evaluating based on it's everything's cost and let's say on paid media, it's all CPMs with major pubs. I think in MarTech too, a lot of it is looking myopically on, okay, like on not understanding the total cost of ownership, more just okay, well, what is the per seat license or what's this? And I think missing the forest for the trees and making those decisions. Like any thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. That happens a lot, unfortunately. And I think one of the ways to counter this with procurement is to bring any impacts on the operations, marketing operations, right? Because you may go to procurement and say, okay, so this one is cheaper in the cost per email address that I have, let's say, but this one will increase our time to market because it does not solve this specific issue for us, or it may increase our dependency on external vendors. So that it should also be taken into consideration. So I think that's an opportunity again for marketers to go and make sure that they explain the effects that those technologies also have on their day to day and opportunities for efficiency and efficacy.
Like that a lot. Turning to AI for a second, like what are you seeing as like a marketing technologist? What are you seeing because there's a lot of there's a gazillion startups, right?
Oh,
So,
yes.
and they all have incredible pitches, well, some better than others, let's say. But I just think it's even more bewildering. But like looking through all of this, like what do you think is real and what's getting you excited that's actually happening in AI right now from a marketing technology perspective?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think there is a lot of opportunities for marketing to improve in two ways, right? So one is on the operation. So how can we be more effective, more efficient? right? How can we, with the same team, produce more? Because there's a lot of demand for that nowadays. And the other side, of course, is how we communicate to the customer, to your end user, to your public, and you make the most out of it. You increase engagement, you increase conversion, right? So there are those two areas, and there are many benefits on both. And I think the AI decisioning is a big one, right? So it's different from what we had in the past, where we would say, okay, if this, then that. Now you can give AI decisioning the objective, and the AI itself will figure out how to get there. Of course, you need to put guardrails in place, and goes without saying that you should have the data in place, because otherwise the AI won't be able to really get to the objective if the data does not allow it to see how to get to that objective to begin with, right? So I see an opportunity here, first of all, for the teams that have already been working on organizing their customer data. So good for you. And second, on the ones that have not, to really get ahead of it so that you can make the most out of AI, and then it can also be scalable. Because otherwise, yes, you can get gains, but then you cannot scale, right? In a big company, well, that won't take you that far. So those are, and avoid FOMO, right? There will be a lot of FOMO. So no FOMO, just go back to the basics, to everything we were just describing here, and then you go and check the opportunity that AI can have for your objectives.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And then I guess looking at like next couple days, I mean, I know we're halfway through. Like, are there any sessions you're excited about? Or are there any like, what are you really looking forward to in this event? What are you hoping to get out of it?
So I'm really happy to be meeting other brand side marketers. I like to meet my peers. Yes. And I'm trying to like meet them, talk to them, because it's amazing to benchmark with my peers. That's awesome. And also a lot of discussions about AI and the future of marketing work. Right. So those are some that I'm also looking forward to understand how other companies are seeing that playing out for them, and how they are working around it. I think it's actually on my mind as well, and I think it's on a lot of marketers' minds as
Yeah.
well.
Well, it's impressive. They've done a really good job incenting brands to come here. I've noticed that.
Yes, yes.
And, this year, I mean, I'm with Omnicom, and like I've noticed more big agency people. I mean, like 2 years ago, there are very few. So it's been a nice evolution to see that. And the conference has gotten bigger. I mean, I think it was 6,000 last year. It's going to be, it's certainly bigger than that this year. I mean,
Yes.
it was a mob seat down
Yes.
in the kind of reception area there by that bar. But I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll run into each other. We usually
Yes.
do, and I really appreciate you coming on the
Thank
pod to talk about this. And we definitely need to get you on for a longer, like how we like those 60 to 90-minute discussions. We're really going to depth. We'd love to get you back on for one of those in the near future, Anna.
Of course.
And thanks again for coming. And
Thank you for having me.